Hello everyone, my name's Luke from the W Club. I'm coming to you here from the Scotch Whisky Bar in the Balmoral, and I'm really excited to be joined by Chief Blender Calum Fraser of Ardray and Stephanie Peck, the brand ambassador of Ardray. So both of you, congratulations on brand new whiskey. Obviously came out in the last week or so, and it's great to see it appearing on shelves across the whisky shop and online. Before we jump into, I've got some great questions here for you, but before we jump into them, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, Calum? What was your story before you came to Ardray?
Yeah, so absolutely delighted to be here, and like you say, with Ardray being released, it's really great to sit here and see the bottle and the beautiful whisky inside. So in terms of my background, I've been in the whisky industry about 12 years, which has, through working with tremendous mentors within the industry, has brought me into a place of, through the last 12 years, blending whiskies and really understanding the craft to create some fine whisky expressions. And Ardray for me is very much a pinnacle, because not only have I taken all my learnings from working with great Scotch master blenders, I now get the opportunity to work with the Japanese whisky making team, which has been amazing in the creation of Ardray.
Excellent. And yourself, Stephanie, what was your story before coming onto the Ardray team?
So my story, as I think is lots of brand ambassadors, very mixed. I trained originally as an actress many moons ago, and then sort of fell into cocktail bars, really. Worked in cocktail bars for a while, and then other front of house, and then sort of specialised in spirits about 8 years ago. I actually previously was working in a small independent English whisky distillery, and then really excited to come on board with the Ardray story and sort of be the UK ambassador for it and sort of tell its story.
Excellent, exciting. Fell into cocktail bars. I normally fall out of them, but that's fine. Marvellous. So obviously it's an exciting concept, a Scotch whisky that's blended by kind of Japanese influence. You've made a big play on this as a premium blend and leaned into that, not been shy from that, whereas obviously blended whiskey has been seen from, not to kind of put too fine a point on it, but people can be quite snobby about it. There's an obsession within the whisky industry, not just in Scotland but in Ireland as well, with it being single malt or having a better provenance. Can you tell us about the kind of what it is around blends that you want to challenge with this, and how you're really confident that a premium blend can kind of really at that price point enthuse consumers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very fair challenge, like you say. I think what we need to remember is, even in 2023, blended Scotch whisky does far outsell single malt Scotch whisky, so there is an appreciation, no doubt about it, for blended Scotch. I think the challenge is perhaps about, arguably, maybe lack of understanding about what is behind the whisky itself within a blended Scotch whisky. For a single malt, it's relatively easy. You get that point of purity that all the whisky in that bottle has come from one single distillery, so it's really easy to focus and visualise where that whisky has come from. For blends, it's a wee bit different. You're using a combination of different malt whiskies, which is maybe a challenge to get your head around, but also as part of the recipe we're also using grain whiskies, which people don't associate as being as romantic visually as a single malt distiller, which has got the beautiful copper pot stills at the end. A grain whisky distillery looks very different. But I think now people and our drinkers across the world they're very educated. They're really interested at really getting in the technical and the detail behind it. And I think we as an industry are more open now to allow people a bit more of an understanding about what goes on behind the scenes in terms of not only the whisky creation process, but also elements of how a whisky's made, how we bring a whisky together at the end. So I think it's a combination of two things. People are getting a bit more understanding, but they're also getting access to more information that the whisky industry is giving them. And I think for me, Ardray is a great opportunity to showcase really amazing mature distillery character from both the grain whiskies that give a really sweet characters, but also in the mouthfeel, real smooth, voluptuous tones which complement very well with the intensity of the various malt whiskies in there, and the opportunity to get a new fresh set of eyes almost on it from our Japanese colleagues who've themselves have got tremendous experience of blending whiskies really is for me a really exciting thing, something new within a arguably quite a congested category. We're taking the opportunity to use the finest whiskies, and we're utilising the great expertise not only here in Scotland that we've got, but in Japan. In terms of number of years, you're well in excess of 100 years of experience, probably far beyond that. I've not quite calculated that in my head yet, but it's we've got the expertise there is second to none to really make Ardray come together.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I've been a big advocate personally for blended whiskies or kind of different mash bills and getting away from the kind of traditional. I think you've really achieved that with this. I don't know if you've any passionate thoughts on blends you want to add, Steph? Or?
Yeah, well, just adding on, I think it really is that knowledge, which is maybe that sort of preconception. In so many other industries, blends are premium. You get, you encounter blends in perfume and wine and all of these other categories, and it is very much accepted as premium. And there is just that sort of previous knowledge of in I guess Scotch, which is changing because people are now more curious, they're learning and they're learning more about it. And I think with Ardray it's just coming really at that perfect time to just celebrate the artistry of blending. It's so hard and I have no idea how to do it, but it's and that just sort of mastery I think is that thing to be celebrated, and I think people are starting to understand that. So yeah.
Oh, excellent. You mentioned there, Calum, the 100 years of Japanese whiskey experience. Could you maybe touch on that in terms of how you feel the differences and similarities are between Scotch and Japanese sort of the whiskey traditions, and how you found working with the team in Japan on this project?
Yeah, I mean it's been a real joy to work with the Japanese blending team. Spent time over with the team at Yamazaki distillery where the blending room is with the team there, and probably there are a lot of parallels and similarities between our teams. The passion for whiskey being one of them. It's the passion and level of detail that the team in Japan go to when they are creating a Japanese whiskey, and in the case of Ardray they've carried that on, really getting down to the real detail in terms of specific casks that they're going to be using, and in the case of Ardray the grain elements, and it's not just one grain distillery, there's more than one grain distillery within the blend, so again looking at the nuances and detail between the grain distillery characters, and then moving on to the malt, we've split that into three kind of flavour styles. The American oak matured malts, which are more delicate, floral, fresh fruity in character, then the sherry seasoned European oak element, which is richer and more heavily bodied, and then the more peated smoky element as well. So within Ardray we use 4 components, we call it, and within that allows you to really dig into the detail, which batch by batch, because we're going to be creating that blend on scale through a solera vat system, really allows the complexity and the detail of characters of those 4 elements to come together when we're looking to tweak batch to batch. So the real, for me, from the Japanese side of things, it's really the attention to detail. We're almost going to molecular level in terms of how we're getting the flavours just right for the first batch, and then as we move to go forward, the ethos will be exactly the same, where we create each individual component and then look to create the batch. So the recipe time after time will be slightly tweaked because we want to make sure we get the right flavour style for the overall blend. But probably the other difference is just in terms of the flavours that they probably favour and are maybe more sensitive to, and that certainly comes across in the flavour style of how Ardray has kind of led to very much around the more floral, softer, more delicate fruit angles, which whereas maybe in Scotland we're a bit more intense in the characters that we use within our blends. But that really, for me, it's every day is a school day. Constantly learning, and that's really opened my eyes to the sophisticated styles of the citrus fruits, some of the orchard fruits, some of the sweeter notes. So really using the grain within the blend, and also some of the kind of more softer peatier characters, which we typically use maybe more heavily bodied, richer, oily peaty characters. Within Ardray, it's a softer, more mellow smoke that's used. So that kind of more delicate touch as part of the precision's been really interesting, and something that's been certainly used within Ardray, and I might borrow it for future creations as part of my future.
Excellent. You mentioned solera vatting there. That's obviously a term that you normally get associated with sherry industry.
Yes.
Could you maybe describe a bit more what that system involves?
Yeah, so the solera system is quite a traditional process. It's not completely not used anymore. It is used within the industry, but not to the extent it was in the past. So very much part of Ardray's ethos is about celebrating, the traditional process of whisky making, and thinking back 100 years of how they did it. And the solera system is an example of that, whereby not just for the blend, but for the actual individual components that I talked about, the grain component and the three malt components, we have those in place under a solera system, whereby when we're creating a batch, we won't fully exhaust the individual components. We will always leave it about 50% of what we've created in the first place, so that when we come to make batch 2, we will simply be topping up the components and the blend. So what that allows is for complexity to be built up over time. So hopefully, with this being a big success and we get on to batch 50, there will be elements of the previous 49 batches in there, so you get the complexity not only from the flavours of the blending, but you're also utilising the flavours and characters that have continued to evolve and integrate from the previous 49. So it's a great way of getting consistency in your flavour profile, but you are constantly building up further complexity to further enhance the quality of the blend as time goes on.
Oh, interesting. You were mentioning there, Calum, about the kind of the story behind the blend and the solera system, and the kind of techniques you picked up working with the team in Japan. How do you find, in terms of where you finished with the blend to where you started? What did you really want to kind of bring into the system in terms of was there an end goal you wanted to get to? Were you building? Was there a kind of a focus on more kind of sweeter styles, which you mentioned, or because there's obviously a nice bit of smokiness at the end? Could you maybe go into more how that process would have started and finished in terms of your preparation and planning and where you wanted to end up?
Yeah, I think probably the overall process it was over 2 years, from start to finish. And also Ardray is the first ever true collaboration between Japan. A true collaboration between the Japanese blending team and the Scottish blending team. So at first we knew we had the inventory, the casks of various different styles of whisky, grain and malt from the islands and the mainland of Scotland. So we had a fantastic array of casks of whisky with which to use to create Ardray. But at first it was a case of, well, let's literally look at every single cask we have and understand the flavours, the characters that we have at our disposal to craft. So there was a lot of play, a lot of experimentation on the bench to see what styles we could play with, and ultimately what we found was, trying to bring some simplicity to the complexity. We created the 4 building blocks of the grain, which is delicate sweet. You had the American oak matured malts, which were quite floral, fresh fruit in character. The sherry seasoned European oak matured malt element, which is more richer, fully bodied in character, and the peaty in character. So that was the 4 building blocks which we then used, and we played tunes on that to see, what would a higher grain element within the blend look like, what would a more richer, fuller bodied blend look like, what would a peaty smoky blend look like, and where we started to work towards was what would the more delicate floral citrus fresh fruit element look like by pushing the American oak matured malt building block. So there was well in excess of 100
I was
pilots and prototypes.
I think when you were telling us before, like you worked in such small increments.
Yes.
Was it like 5% increments with all of them? So you found like this window of balance, and then it was like, right, okay, we're going to dig deeper, tiny little 1% increments. So like the amount of different expressions before we got to the final one.
Yeah, and that was across 2 continents. So that was happening in Asia, it was happening in Europe and Scotland as well. So it's a lot of trials and tribulations to get there. A lot of nosing, tastings, utilising modern technology over Teams, and then obviously in person, whether the Japanese team came to see us in Scotland or I went over to Japan to see them. So yeah, it was a long but absolutely fruitful, and worthwhile process, because we got to Ardray at the end.
And logistically, in terms of, you obviously mentioned Zooms and meeting in person, but or Teams or virtual meetings. How often were you sending liquid back and forth, or was that an issue in terms of duty or anything, or was all the sampling done in person?
No, samples were sent to Japan, all compliantly.
Of course.
Just in case we get investigation. No, always done compliantly, of course. But yeah, there was a lot of cast sampling. Literally everything that we had identified as being available for Ardray was essentially sent over to Japan, and very much it was a collaboration that we did some in Scotland, but a large amount of the work was done by Shinji and his blending team over in Japan.
Stephanie, who do you think for you as the brand ambassador? Who's the Ardray drinker you imagine in your head? What's your kind of target consumer?
I guess the people I imagine who are going to be interested in and wanting to drink Ardray are those whiskey drinkers that are curious, a bit inquisitive. They might be maybe on a journey of discovery in their sort of whiskey journey, and sort of open to trying new things, I think. Those sorts of people who don't have preconceptions or are open to challenging their sort of preconceptions about categories, about different regions, and also about the sort of blended categories. I very much sort of imagine people grabbing a bottle and just sitting around and trying it with friends and sort of talking about it and talking about the flavours that they find within it. It's one of the reasons why I love Ardray so much, is because there are just so many complex flavours, and I've been lucky to be going around a lot of bars and obviously talking to a lot of very knowledgeable people around it, and everyone's discovering new flavours and sort of these tasty notes that keep coming about, and yeah, I think it's those sorts of discussions which I sort of imagine Ardray sitting in that place.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits and the positives about a blend, is because you're using whiskies from various different distilleries, malt and grain, then it opens you up to all these flavours and characters that a single malt is purely it's less
constrained with flavours, right?
Exactly.
You can just harness flavours from so many places and bring them together to sort of create something new.
Yeah, and that's one of the principles of Ardray, is all about the layers of flavour, all in balance, but depending on your preference, hopefully you'll pick up something, at least one flavour, maybe several flavours that you really enjoy as part of the blend.
Yeah, you mentioned that preference there. We obviously, a select group of W Club members were very lucky to get an advanced sample of the liquid before it came out. They didn't know what it was, and we asked them for a few comments and feedbacks. I know there's a blog up on our website for anyone who's interested in reading it, and a few of the quotes are on socials. Did you have anything jump out at you when you read over what W Club members thought? Anything that you thought, I wouldn't have thought that myself, or anything interesting?
One of the real focus areas for certainly the team in Japan and ourselves here in Scotland is not only about what flavours and characters you pick up on the nose, but the whole experience on the palate. So the mouth feel, the taste, the aftertaste. It's all about getting. You get that concerto of flavour styles, whether it's the fresh fruits, the orchard fruits, the spice, the smoke, but also the texture is very important to us for Ardray, and certainly the comments about the creaminess, the long aftertaste. It was really great to see that resonate with your panel.
Yeah.
But being honest, I'd like a higher score than the 7.5 to be honest, but you can't have everything. But we're going to go back for another set.
It's like, I think it's like the keep football scores. Like, they're I think it's the best whiskies in the world to be scoring the same amount. Like, they're just a serious group. Like. Do you want to tell us a bit? I don't know, maybe yourself, Steph, want to tell us a bit about the design? I mean, the bottle itself is beautiful. It's got these lovely ripples ribbed down the sides.
Yeah, I mean, the bottle, the box, the carton, and everything. Obviously, you can see Brian. It's really beautiful. So with Ardray, as we've mentioned, we really want to celebrate the artistry of blending and that sort of craftsmanship and skill, and sort of with that sort of celebrate arts and artistry as well. So everything, as we've said, the level of attention to detail goes right through from the whiskey through to everything. But the bottle very much was designed to celebrate, I guess, the collaboration between Scotland and Japan, that kind of wildness of the sort of Scottish terroir and all the different regions within it. So yeah, it's beautiful textured glass, and then also obviously the label very precise, with those sorts of nod to Japanese typography and all bits like that. So yeah, I mean, I could go through every single point of that bottle, and everything has been nothing is by chance. It's all been thought through, even to the point of how precise the triangle edge was. Did you know this? I only learnt this the other day, but the degree of the point was considered. They didn't want it too sharp or too rounded. It was like it had to be perfect. So. And
the A with the double lines is quite an interesting symbol. What does that mean?
So both that and the name Ardray actually are both linked or inspired by Shinjiro Tori, the founder of Suntory, and his kind of quest to keep pushing whiskey and the whiskey industry forward, keep challenging it and moving forward, really. So Ardray means towards the light, keep looking forward and keep bringing new things to the table, and the A is inspired by a sketch that they found in one of his notebooks as this kind of railroad, keep moving forward in this kind of continuous journey of...
So like the top of the A is like the horizon.
Exactly,
that's clever.
Yeah.
Excellent. Calum, we've already spoken a lot about sort of the blending side of things. I suppose maybe the last thing in that regard that I'm going to ask you is, for yourself as a blender, what's the single most important skill or technique you need?
Can I give you a few? Or
Sure.
Yeah,
Go on.
I think
Top three, yeah.
No, I mean, ultimately the most important thing, the foundation of any blender is the ability to detect flavours, both good and bad. In a typical day in the blending, I could be nosing about 300 samples, all the way from new mate distillate through maturing stock, through cask trials, through to casks that we're either selecting to make up a blend or the final bottling product. So for example, for Ardray, every single time a spirit or the whiskey was moved from the vat all the way through to bottling, myself and the team in Scotland would nose it to make sure that we're getting the quality from what we expect. So essentially no stone is unturned. So the nose is the most important thing for us to be able to do that. So both being able to detect flavours and characters, but also to be able to articulate that's absolutely the essential skill. And probably the most sexy part of the job, when you're talking about that. Probably the less attractive things, but that are equally as important as, understanding your inventory, making sure that we have enough of the ingredients, the different styles from the different distilleries available to support when this is a huge success, I hope, and I'm sure it will be, batch 2, batch 3, batch 4, etc., and plan ahead. So as part of our role is understanding our inventory to make sure that it's not only going to be there for today but also for the future as well. So that's another important aspect that we have to consider, but absolutely the most important thing is having a good sense of smell.
No, excellent. And you mentioned batch 2, batch 3, and planning forward. What in terms of availability, both internationally, domestically? What's the kind of the run of the first batch, and what is the plans for future batches?
Do you want to do that?
I actually don't know what the total amount worldwide was. You probably know the total amount.
Yeah, we're talking 9 litre cases. Is that's what?
Whichever, yeah.
Hopefully you cut this one because I wasn't prepared for this. It's a very limited run, so it's probably in the region of for the first batch about 20 to 25,000 bottles worldwide, focusing on the UK. The USA and also China as well, so it's pretty limited, and it will probably remain fairly limited at the start, and we'll see where things go after that.
Yeah.
But the big challenge is making sure that we've got the right stock. So it's not about the volume that we're selling. It's not about the quantity. It's absolutely about the quality.
100%,
So if we don't have the right whiskies at the right stage of their maturation, because one of the key core principles of Ardray is to be selecting whiskies that are at the optimal point of their maturation, whether they're maturing in American oak barrels, American oak hogsheads, or sherry seasoned European oak casks, that we're picking them at the right point in their maturation life to use in Ardray. So there's not a huge array of whiskies that fit the bill for Ardray. Within batch 1 we're only using 11 whiskies, for example, and it's really about making sure the blend is considered, and we're letting every element, every distillery in there have its place to sing. So we've been very selective about what whiskies we use. So as a result, there won't be a huge volume available to share, because we want to make sure the quality inside the bottle's right, rather than just sending out in big volume and maybe diluting the effect and the characters and the flavour style that we really want to showcase in Ardray.
No,
yeah,
excellent.
I think that sort of links back to what we want to do with Ardray is start that conversation around the category again, and you can only do that if you're only putting the finest quality thing forward, and that's what we want to do is have people try it, start that conversation, and then hopefully it will open up and slowly grow over the years.
Yeah, well, the whiskey brands always talk about what they do with their best stock. They never tell you what they do with their worst. So I suppose the two last questions I have for you. One, are Ardray perfect serve? If you're not having it neat, how would you recommend it, Steph?
This is going to seem like a total cop-out answer, but when it comes to all whiskies, and especially Ardray, it's however you enjoy it, which is going to sound totally pathetic, but it is true. I think Ardray is a discovery. It's a discovery and a conversation. It really wants to spark that conversation and get people talking about the category and about what's in the glass. We know it's delicious in all of the classic ways that you drink whiskey. It's been really hot. I've been enjoying it regularly in a highball, obviously just topped up with soda, super refreshing, but also in those kind of more shorter, stirred down drinks as well. I think it's that next level of artistry is making drinks. It's why I'm really excited to start working with bartenders on what they get excited about, because there's a real, obviously, complex variety of flavours for them to pull out, whether they're going to pull out that smokiness and really amplify it, or kind of lean into those kind of more orchard fruits and things like that. So yeah, I think the time will tell what will be the favourite way for people to drink it. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it is a truly versatile in terms of what the serve could be. The crux of it is traditionally it should be enjoyed neat, but it certainly works well with a couple of drops of water to open up all those complexities and layers of flavours that we talked about earlier. An ice cube really, starts to open up the intense maltiness within the blend. But I'm echoing yourself. A refreshing highball smell is tremendous. You know, it's really refreshing. You get the fruitiness, but it really lets the smoky element, which is just one element of Ardray, really to come through for me. That really soft, mellow smokiness coming through, which we take well from both mainland distilleries, but also from island distilleries. There's peatiness from both elements there that really come through in a highball, which in the heat of a Scottish summer that lasts all of a couple of days works really well.
Excellent. And then for all the whisky shop customers out there who haven't yet got their hands on the Ardray, what do you think is the one reason, the last kind of comment you'll leave them as to why they should definitely go out and pick one up? I don't know if you want to take that one first, Steph.
Yeah, I think it's time to pick one up because it's something new. It's something new into a category, which a heritage category and it's sort of bringing something fresh into it. And for everyone who is curious and open to sort of trying new things, Ardray is just bringing this kind of something new to that category and something new to discover.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's probably the first true collaboration between Japan and Scotland. You know, the passion that both the teams in Scotland and Japan have combined to create something even greater. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how those two ethoses come together. We certainly think it works. We'd love to see what the people in the whisky that buy from the whisky shop and further afield as time goes on think about the collaboration and the whisky that's been created therefrom.
Yeah, marvellous. Well, it's available now in the whisky shop all over the country and online, so definitely pick one up if you haven't already. Callum, thank you for your time, and Steph, it's been absolutely brilliant.
So much.
And yeah, we should all have a drink now, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, marvellous. Cheers.
Slide you.